So, I am a person. I live in the world and I would really like to figure out what is actually really the deal with the world and whatever reality surrounds it. So I closed my eyes and I asked. But nothing. So bummer, dude. Instead, like most people, have had to wade through the massive sea of ideas that we as a society have collected, picking and choosing which to accept or reject. There were some that were pretty easy to reject. The idea of an angry God being that reacts, judges us, is petty, and punishes, or an all-powerful deity who created everybody but only gives the blessing of eternal happiness to the select few and banishes everybody else to permanent misery. No, I don't like either of those. They make no sense. There were others that I instantly liked, biology, or just the study of all the intricacies and awesomeness of nature. And evolution, I mean, what a spectacular, although violent, but still majestic unfolding of life on this planet. But there was another idea I soon came upon that involved all of this. There was a big group of people who had an idea which said that since nature, take a tree for instance, since we've discovered that a tree is a complex biological organism, and since it fits into place in the evolutionary context and all its physical parts make sense in the context of each other, that from that we know there's nothing spiritual or something else behind it. I think everything science is saying about trees is true, but I don't see how that negates the possibility that all the laws and events leading to a tree could be powered or infused or whatever by some greater mind or a greater something. How can you say you know everything about a tree just because you know a lot about it? Consider, if you're in the mood, the following. So the first person ever to see a tree suddenly sees his first tree. "Oh," he says, "I see what that tree is. It's a thing sitting there on top of the ground. It's gray and crinkled and there it is. I see it, and of course I know what's going on. I'm right here in front of it." But is he right? Well, yes and no. I mean, he's right about some things, but as you or I could easily tell him, there's a lot going on here that he missed. Along comes a person from the future, from hundreds of thousands of years later, maybe even millions, when humans have been around trees and messing around with trees for a long time. He comes and tells the first person, "Guess what? You don't see it in this tree here, but actually, this tree has leaves inside it. They're going to come out when the weather gets warmer. And not only that, but even though they're buried, there are roots in the ground that stick out, just like these branches. Plus, the inside of this tree is different than the outside. It's made of wood. We actually cut those things up and make all kinds of things out of them." But as he was talking, another guy from just 1500 years later came up to both of them and said, "Hey dudes, I have something new to tell you about trees." And the second guy says, "What are you talking about, homeboy?" Or like however you said homeboy back then. "My people and I have been around trees for hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions, of years. We've done everything you can possibly do to trees. We cut them open, we pruned them, crossbred hybrid species, ate the fruit that grows. My cousin Theodore dressed up like a tree for Halloween. My entire house is made of wood. I stare at dead trees all day. How can you possibly say that I don't know what's going on with trees?" But the third person said, "Oh, you do know a lot about trees, no question. Everything you said is true and real, but do you know about cells?" Cells? The wood that you're looking at isn't just wood. On a microscopic level, it's actually made of like trillions and modrillions and drazillions of spherical units, which grow, reproduce, and divide. But inside those are still smaller, highly complex organelles that each perform a specific function, just like your organs in your body do. This whole tree as a unit is pulling water from the soil and opening tiny pores in its leaves to create a suction force in which to do so while food travels down in an interior layer of bark. Yeah, it's true. The whole tree is made of cells. Oh yeah, and guess what? So are you. This stuff has always been happening the entire time you've been around trees, but you just couldn't see it because you didn't have the right tools. So while you were right, and you were right, you just didn't know the whole truth. But I know the whole truth. But, dum-da-dum, just then a person from only 30 years later came along and said, "I have something new to tell you about trees, dudes." "Wait," the third person said, "are you crazy? I already know everything about trees. I've looked them over completely with a microscope. I know how trees grow, how they consume and produce energy, why they die, everything. It makes complete sense on a cellular level. Everything's accounted for. If there was something else going on, I would have seen it. But that doesn't matter because there doesn't need to be anything else. It's a complete, self-consistent system. I've studied it and I know everything about it. How can you say I don't know about this tree? But the fourth person said, oh, you do know a lot about trees. No question. Everything you said is true and real. But do you know about atoms? Atoms? That tree and all the cells in it are actually made of these incredibly small units called atoms, which consist of a core of even more minute units called protons and neutrons. But there's a third element in atoms called electrons, which are a particle so tiny they barely even have any mass at all, and they whip around the center at thousands of miles per second. And we made these machines that get them almost up to the speed of light. Oh yeah, did you know that light has a speed? Yep, 186,000 miles per second, as fast as the waves shot out of the sun. Well, they might not be waves, they might be particles, but right now we think they act like both. Oh yeah, did I mention that we may at this point be discovering that matter can actually exist simultaneously in 2 places at once? 2 places at the same time! And there are actually may not be 3 dimensions, length, width, and height, but well over 10 dimensions. Most of them exist at such a microscopic level that we had no idea that they even existed though until now. But the real kicker is that even though atoms are made up of these little tiny particles, and the particles are so small and so spread out that the vast majority of any atom is empty space. Like the actual matter content is just a marble's worth in a football field. So that tree you're looking at is almost all empty space. Nothing. Not only that tree, but every single thing you've ever seen is practically nothing, including you. You, despite all your achievements and personality quirks, are almost 100% walking, talking, empty void. Pretty trippy, huh? So there we are, person number 4. But are we going to make the same mistake? To think that just because we know a lot, we know everything. Or just because we've learned amazing complex things, that there can't be exponentially more incredible, unbelievable, mind-blowing things sitting right there inside the thing we think we know everything about. So when the 5th person comes and says, yes, you do know a lot about trees, but do you know about influx? Huh? That tree is in the shape of your mind, you know. We've learned that the force that set the course of evolution to create and maintain the exact shapes around you, as opposed to the infinite other possibilities, is the same one that shaped you, and is constantly mirroring your interiors in the way the universe is organized, as it is in dreams, but here, in our waking reality. The mammals, reptiles, birds, fish, and insects you see around you are, in addition to being animals, 3-dimensional living representations of your feelings and thoughts. And plants, like this tree grows and reproduces, but is also a living picture of rationality and the potential of the human mind. And like everything else, your human form reflects the divine human you stem from. And just like you love, care for, spend time with, and play video games with the people around you, the divine loves, cares for, and provides for your life in a trillion unseen ways. But this will be a lot clearer when your body dies and your spirit becomes aware of the other world it's already living in. Or something, I don't know. Maybe there is something spiritual going on. Maybe it seems too far-fetched. But none of those first 3 guys had any inkling of what the next guy would bring. It's been the rule so far that life is always showing us that there are forces at work that have been there all along but we couldn't see before. I don't understand the logic that says, because I know a lot about something, I know everything about it, when that's never been the case yet. I guess I just don't get how you can say you know there's not God inside a tree.